Nobody. Is that Deputy Whitmore? Go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. Minister, I suppose with inland fisheries, I see that the budget actually is reduced. Now, it's only slightly reduced, but there is a reduction. And I suppose, considering the biodiversity crisis that we're in, it's a bit disconcerting that we're not putting a lot more money and emphasis into our inland fisheries. They perform an incredibly important function. Obviously our river systems are in dire straits. I think we only have 20 rivers that are in pristine condition, and that's down from 500 rivers in the 1980s. So, you know, the direction of travel when it comes to our water quality and river quality is completely, you know, it's very unsatisfactory. I'm just wondering, one of the areas that I work a lot in is the removal of weirs and barriers, and I know that under the EU Green Deal that's going to be a key focus of that. And I think a lot of our barriers in our river systems are actually completely unnecessary. You know, many of them were just for aesthetic purposes, but they cause huge problems for fish migration. And what you tend to find is actually that upstream water can often be much better quality water, and so we're stopping fish migrating into better quality water that would obviously expand their range quite significantly. Are there any plans within your department to fund a weir or barrier remediation programme? I'm working on one at the moment with Inland Fisheries, Wicklow County Council, Law Pro and the East Wicklow Rivers Trust on a couple of weirs in Wicklow. But I think it's certainly a programme that should be rolled out across the country. I know there's specific instances such as the Anacotty Weir that is a major barrier to lamprey migration. And I think it's one of those areas that you could make significant improvements with very little investment. I'm just wondering, do you have any plans to invest in weir and barrier remediation? Thank you.
I make the point that I agree with you. We don't pay enough attention and significance. Well, that we need to pay more attention and significance to the importance of inland fisheries, and it's very much a barometer of how we're performing in environmental grounds, because without pristine rivers, without pristine waters, we won't get the salmonid species particularly, and indeed related bird life and other systems. So it's also hugely important. I just think it is a connection to nature for a lot of people that's hugely significant, and it's in its own right. It's a key ecosystem, and the inland fisheries have a critical role in protecting it and developing it. I hope that the comprehensive policy framework review that I mentioned in my own opening remarks will help us increase that budget and set out much more ambitious policy measures. And that roadmap was launched in January this year, setting out the next stage of policy development and reimagining our relationship with the natural resources is the wording that in my opening statement. But that is, in my mind, a real key priority. If I always in this department think it's probably the most interesting. I fixated on the salmon numbers each year. What's happening in our river systems and in the wider world. I'm very aware of that. The likes of the Anacotty River, the barrier there. Has a huge effect not just on salmon returning up, but also in eel, and the huge difficulty we've lost eel populations, and that has huge knock-on consequences then in terms of bird populations, because you don't have the feedstock for the whole system. I don't have an answer to whether there's a specific. I've often thought about this myself and wondered, and even on some of my own local rivers, we have salmon going up the Dodder, would you believe now? But they get caught at certain weir systems. We could extend right the way up the Dodder, which would be transformative, but some of the weirs are impassable. So I've often wondered, and they're not needed for any mill functions or. So I agree. I think we should be looking at, and even sometimes a lot of the fish passes, you look at them and they actually are not either kept up or they're not well designed in terms of delivering what they're meant to deliver. So I would commit to you that we might come back to this. That I might ask the department for a more detailed briefing paper on what we're doing with fish passes as part of this review of inland fisheries, and come back maybe for a much lengthier discussion when I have some of those details.
That'd be great. Thank you, Minister.
Deputy Devlin.
Thank you, Chair. And similar to